Hello, in this tutorial we're going to look at backgrounds, how to find backgrounds, trace them, talk about blurring, looking for references, and then thinking in colors and light. So I want to show you different ways to approach this, and this is from Junkbox. And here you could have just a white background. So in this part of the short film, in his dream, he's thinking of it that way. If we look at this film, I mean, there's so many different environments, and so you can look at the ground here. I put it on pause. It's really pixelated, so it's kind of a low resolution ground because it's really not that important. So I didn't want to overemphasize things. Notice too how the background here is also very blurry. This is another technique you can do to keep the focus on the main characters and maybe some of the props you have in the line of sight. Yeah, this film's got a lot of different places and environments. Just to scrub through, you can see how the theme park is back here as a background. There as well, all blurry. All of the different graphics were hand generated, and then all these different things were kind of placed in there. You can see too how there's been some decay on some of the things in the background, and there is some blur there too, as he's looking for power. This is the amusement park arcade. And so I ended up using black in the background only because, I mean, everything's out of electricity, so the character's kind of moving through the space. And again, blurry background. So that's one thing I wanted to show you in terms of that. Moving on to Photoshop. There's a few things we can do. So here's a photograph that I took when I was in Iceland, and I just want to talk about maybe tracing this image or maybe using some filters. So I'm going to create a new layer once I've loaded the image in. A common question people ask me is how big you should make the background, and it should be larger than your screen size or your image size for your project. So it should be larger than 1920 by 1080. That way, if you want to zoom in or zoom out, there's not a lot of pixel loss in the image. But I've created a new layer here, and I can start tracing over this. I'm going to use the brush tool, and because I have it on a new layer, I can just start drawing on there with my mouse. If I have a stylus pen, then I would use that. So I'm using the brush, which is B, and then I is the eyedropper. So the eyedropper allows us to sample, kind of click and sample something there, and we can pull up that color, and then we can start drawing. So I can start drawing over this. Now this is really rough, but you can start to see how you can trace over this using the brush tool. The paint bucket is shortcut key K. Sorry, G. So the paint bucket tool, we can kind of fill that in after we create an outline. We can use the same color on the other side, so maybe right from here. And G. Let's just fill that in a little bit. So I clicked a couple times. Then we can start drawing in maybe some of the background. And so I can sample another color if I want, using I again. I can create another layer too and put that behind it. And using B for the brush, start drawing in this background. G allows us to fill again. Hide this. G again. Then from here, let's see what else we could do. We can use the eyedropper to pull up another color. If we can click here and then change the color, I'm going to put a little bit more blue in that background. And so maybe I'll just use blue for the rest of the background all the way to maybe here. use G to fill that in. And then I will do the same for this side. I'll pick a lighter blue and draw that in back over here. So you can kind of see how it's working and playing through. I can keep this sky the way it is. I can keep the water the way it is, and it creates a unique image. And again, we're using layers though, so I do want this water in the background. So I'll pick white, and then I will use the brush again to draw in the outline, and then fill that in. Like that. And then I can do the same for the sky, or I could just leave it. And there's tracing a background using really basic colors and shapes. So I've used just a handful of shapes to pull that off. I'm just going to hide those layers that I just drew. I can also use some of the filters, and we can use the blur filter. I'm just going to use the Gaussian blur, and that makes a really nice background as well. With just a blurry background, you can change the pixels so that way the background is not too disruptive to your foreground elements. So the other things we could do is we can, I'm just going to cancel there, is under filter we can go and pixelate things. We can stylize them. So for example, if we wanted to find edges, you can create something like that, which is interesting and different. The other one that I like to use is under Pixelate. It's called Mosaic. So it makes it really kind of boxy. So there's that tool. The other one I like to use is Crystallize, and that brings up another window, and it looks something like this. You can't really preview it, but see how the cell sizes kind of make for an interesting image. It really kind of opens up that image a little bit. Solarize is also interesting. It makes it look like it's the opposite. And then if you're not too sure, you just want to play around, there's the filter gallery, and there you can go under artistic, and you can see how the images change. You can use them in combination of each other, or you can go, look, this cutout's actually pretty nice. And there's poster edges under painting. It's also quite nice. Sponge works. Watercolor. Palette knife is also nice. And you can also make adjustments to it. So here under palette knife here, we can change the stroke size so the brush strokes are a little bit more detailed. You can also adjust the softness of it so it's not as harsh. So those are some options. And there's other ones here. Distort, diffuse glow. It's quite weird. Ocean ripple. Different sketches. So if you want it to look like a graphite pen, charcoal, things like that. Stamp. Glowing edges. We looked at before, kind of. Torn edges. So again, that's under filter gallery. And those will give you plenty of options and a great time waster at the same time. So to search for different backgrounds, I'm going to pull up Google Chrome. I've already typed in backgrounds here, and these are some of the images that appear. And while you're searching for them and you're looking for maybe some samples or to use some of these backgrounds, here's some interesting ones under Tumblr. These are a little too small, so it's 500 by 313. So if you go under search tools and change the size, go under large. And large should give you, so here it gives you 1920 by 1080. That would work. This probably wouldn't. But as I just continue to scroll down, you can use any of these as background elements, modify them if you choose. Just make sure you credit it in the credit section in terms of where you got those backgrounds and who produced them. Some are a little obscure and you can't find that information, then that's fine. Like this one, Pixelate Space, might be a little bit harder to find information on it. Then from there, what I want to talk about too is the different types of lighting situations that could come from your backgrounds. So if you look at this one here, it's just a black and white background. This one is in water, so typically water does mute colors. I do want to talk about daytime, evening, and nighttime situations. So here in daytime, the colors are really bright. There tends to be a little bit of blue because of the sky. So the sky generates a blue shadow slightly. I don't know why this showed up. It's kind of weird. But anyways, if I continue to scroll down, you'll see that that common thread appears. So it's kind of a slight blue, greens, some clouds. If I switch over to evening background, the clouds change color. They become a darker. And the sky becomes like a red-orange. And there's a little bit more blue too in the sky. I would say the clouds turn that color. And then the ground also becomes darker. So the green is now a little bit darker. So those are things you want to think about. And then going to nighttime, the skies go back to almost like this gray-blue color. And then the sky is also darker. And then we start to see more shadows. But overall, it's not really that dark. But there is a lot more blue. So like in this image, the light blue becomes a darker blue, or almost a purple. And that's how we see nighttime scenes. So if you decide to kind of play with these different colors and times of days, those are things you need to think about. With daytime, there's going to be a bright sun, blue sky, green grass, and then as we go towards evening, the evening's going to have a sunset, which is going to have orange and reds, and a little bit grayer skies and a dark ground. And then when we move to nighttime, there's a lot more blue and navy blue seen. So in summary, you will want to think about how you can use backgrounds, whether there is a background or not, and how those backgrounds play in your piece. It's really quite interesting and captivating if you have interesting backgrounds. So going back to Jump Box that we saw earlier, okay, this is an interesting background. This background works too with all the glass that's broken on the ground, and then the word theme park there. And then this one with the grass, which is highly stylized. Those are things that will really help your projects, make them look interesting and engaging and keep people interested. So, backgrounds.